Welcome to the Next Step Recovery podcast. We call this More Than Recovery because addiction is so much more than just getting clean from our addictions, our strongholds. It's really finding our purpose in life, and that's what we're here for each and every day. I like to say that we have three purposes here at the Next Step Recovery podcast. The first purpose is to encourage people, to encourage those who are struggling in their addiction or just in life. It doesn't have to be an addiction. It could be anything. So we want to encourage you. Number two, we want to educate you. We want to help you help other people. We want to help you help others. And then finally, we want to expand our reach. We want to expand our impact. We want to expand our partners. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to a great show. All right, I got EJ here with me today, Elijah. So welcome back to the More Than Recovery podcast, video cast, and all that good stuff. And EJ is here today. And EJ is, each guy's got a little something different. And EJ is joining us here in Macon, Georgia, all the way from
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah. He's a Cornhusker. So I don't know. Right. I'm not sure if you're a Cornhusker fan or not.
No, I grew up in Michigan. So.
You were kind of.
I was born in Nebraska, but grew up in Michigan. And
okay. Is that where your parents are now? Are your parents in Michigan right now?
No, they're in Nebraska.
They're back in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When my parents moved back to Nebraska, I moved to South Carolina, and then ended up finding my way out to Macon eventually. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about 2019. And
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ran into some legal trouble, got put on probation, ended up back in Nebraska, and then ended up getting in more legal trouble, going to prison for a year sentence. And before I'd gone to prison, though, I had some pretty crazy things happen in my life. I was running with people that I shouldn't have been around. I was stealing from people, things like that, and it actually it got me kidnapped and tortured. So that all happened in July 28th of 2022. So that happened, and then after that, I was still facing that legal issue, and I got that settled. I ended up having to go to prison for it. When I got done with that, they're like, "Hey, you got a hold for a probation violation in Georgia," and so then I came out here. So I wasn't even out for barely 15 hours before I was back in county waiting to be brought out here.
Wow.
And then sat in Bibb County for 70-something days, almost 80 days. And then, by the grace of God, got to go to Next Step instead of RSAT, the rehab prison.
Right. Yeah. RSAT, I go back and sometimes I've defined these on other podcasts, but RSAT in Georgia, residential substance abuse treatment, RSAT.
Yeah.
They have these acronyms. It's prison. You're right. It's the substance abuse program in the prisons. Now, last week I went to an RSAT program in the jail in Newton County, Georgia. So there are a few that are in the jails, not many, probably 3 or 4 out of all the counties in Georgia, and there's hundreds of counties in Georgia. So RSAT is a in prison treatment program. And the thing that's tough about this is that it's a 9-month program, but you may sit in jail for 5 or 6 months waiting for a bed to open up in one of those programs. So they call that dead time, where you're sitting in jail and it doesn't count for anything.
Yeah.
It counts in nothing because you're just waiting.
No one in jail likes that.
Right.
They want their time to count for something if they got to be there.
Right. You want this to count and it doesn't count for, it's just wasted dead time, so it's tough, man. That is. So RSAT, so at Next Step in lieu of RSAT. And so you said in Bibb County for
almost 80 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got the whole tour. I started on J Block, which is like the worst place to be in there.
Yeah.
Ended up over on
G Wing.
I was on D Block then for a little while, which is like way less people, but still pretty bad. There's rats and all sorts. I'm not going to get into all that, but it's bad. Anybody who's been to Bibb County knows it's bad. And then I was on G Wing at the end there, which was that's like summer camp. That's not too bad, but
and I could sit here and give you the rundown of many jails in the state of Georgia because I've been in I've been in a lot of them.
Yeah.
Not because, maybe I should have been locked up, but I wasn't,
No.
But I've been in Bibb County Jail, and that is not someplace you want to spend a whole lot of time.
No. Absolutely
not. No offense to the sheriff. They're dealing with a tough.
It's the inmates that make this.
Yeah, it's you're dealing with a tough population there. Yeah. And then last week I was up in Newton County Jail Detention Center, and again, still the population drives it, but the facilities were just so nice, and it was, each jail is different. You don't want to go to any of them.
No,
you don't want to go to any of them. We're talking about, how nice something is. We don't want it to be the jails that are, but certainly where you end up getting locked up can make all the difference in the world, because Bibb County can be really, really, really rough in terms of from most of the time in Bibb County, you're not going to get a bed. You'll be sleeping on a floor. You'll be sleeping on a concrete floor.
Lucky to have a blanket.
Yeah, you may get a blanket, and you won't get a pillow
until someone takes it.
Right,
as soon as you get up to go get some food or get in the line, come back, everything's gone.
Yeah, so a lot. We could have a whole podcast on jails here, on detention centers, but we won't. Right. So you spent 70, 80 days there at Bibb County. Came to Next Step, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to Next Step in December, right? Yeah. Right before Christmas, I think, or right
December
after.
15th.
Yeah, right before Christmas. Yeah, it's always tough to get there right in the holidays.
Hey, it worked out. I was happy to be at Next Step.
Out of Bibb County Jail
for Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. So not be incarcerated there at least. So so you got to Next Step and settled in, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so tell me a little bit about EJ. I know you share what you want, right? But you had mentioned that you were kidnapped.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And tortured. What happened there?
So you can, if you Google my name, you can get quite a bit of information. There's one of the guys who was arrested tried to appeal it, and that appeal has been posted. So there's a lot of information there. But it was on the news. It made Fox News. So July 28th in 2022. She was my roommate, but not at that time. So previous roommate, we went to, purchase some drugs from someone, and I didn't know who I was being sent to, but the people that I had been friends with sent me to this person, and turns out it was someone that I actually had been involved in robbing in the past, and I had no idea. I didn't know this person, so it's not like I could recognize him when I got there. And I was meeting him at his work, at least that's what he had said. And I walk in and I get hit in the head with a pipe wrench. Next thing you know, I'm getting strung up, handcuffed, on a forklift, tortured all night. They gave me roughly 100 hits of LSD and taped my mouth shut. My roommate that was with me, she was sexually assaulted, and it was bad. Yeah, it was a terrible night.
Yeah, and we certainly don't have to go into the details of that, but it was that had an impact.
It 100%
on you.
After that night, and God getting me through that night, and because I didn't think I was going to even live through that situation, and then so they had eventually left me in the middle of nowhere, ratchet strapped to a tree, miles and miles away from any town or people, middle of nowhere, Nebraska. So pretty much cornfields everywhere. I had managed to escape being strapped to this tree. I'm still handcuffed, and I had been, branded and things like that. So I was pretty beat up. They branded me with the word thief. So that, doesn't look good. And someone had found me on their way to work. I could see on his face, he was terrified. I was terrified because I didn't, I was still under the influence of what they had given me. It was very scary situation. And, once I had heard my parents, their voices on the phone and knew they were alive because their lives had been threatened if I had said anything, things like that, especially because of what happened to my friend who was with me and everything, I had no reason not to be honest about what had happened that night, because and I know the lifestyle I lived, that's snitching or whatever people say. But you don't do that kind of stuff to somebody and not have to pay for it. Yeah. So, luckily those guys are, they're doing the time that they deserve, and they can't hurt anybody else, because the one had a very big rap sheet of physical violence to women and all sorts of things. It was a life-changing situation, and God got me out of it. And even after that, I still struggled with addiction. I still struggled getting high and just not knowing how to cope with all my emotions and everything. And what I needed to do was turn to God. And I didn't do that right away. And once I went to prison for the stuff that I was dealing with prior to this whole situation, I got in my Bible quite a bit, and I got in a group of guys who every day are doing Bible studies in there, and it made my whole time there just so much better, because I was hanging out with people that, were in the Word, and not people who are doing things that people do in prison.
Right.
So, it's all in God's plan. I get out of prison, and instead of just being right back into the community out there where all this went down, I saw my parents for a night, I saw my brother, he was in town for a night, and his fiance. Next thing you know, I'm back in jail. I actually got to see the guy who did what he did to me. I got to see him sentenced, and then they put me back in custody.
Wow.
So, and that was a little bit of closure there for sure. And the whole time I trusted God, and when I went back in the county, I didn't have anything with me, but there was a little daily bread in my cell. So I started, reading that every day, rereading it, and then I was able to get a Bible, and it just, everything, has brought me closer to God this whole time.
So suffering will tend to bring us closer to the Lord.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And just trusting that He's got the situation, that for whatever reason, He brought me back out here. And I used to have to take all sorts of medication and things like that, and I don't have to take any now. Even after the situation that happened to me, it's amazing.
A lot of trauma.
Right.
The abuse, maybe some, especially the PTSD.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with PTSD. So
from the certainly being kidnapped, tortured, ratchet strapped to a tree.
Yeah, branded with the word thief.
Yeah, involuntary drug was administered to you,
right,
and
horrible stuff. Man, I'm very blessed to be where I am today. Be able to walk and talk and things like that, because there's people who can't after taking much less of what I was given. So it's
right. And since you've been at Next Step, I think if you've had a couple of hiccups, right?
Oh yeah,
a couple of hiccups.
I've got a lot to learn. Absolutely.
And again, we get back up. Any guy is going to have a couple of hiccups at Next Step, and they get back up, and they we keep going forward, and that's okay. It's not that we have a hiccup. It's that, what do we do with that hiccup? What do we do when we have a setback? What do we do with that? Do we get back up? I was sharing a story a while back, and it's certainly not to your level of a story. Okay. But it's personal. It was personal to me. And my daughter sent it to me because I had recorded it on another video, and she sent it to me, and she said, "Dad, could you tell this story again on an upcoming?" And this might be a good time to share it, right? And my point in that story was that failure is easy, and it's easy for us to get stuck in failure, and it's certainly nothing that you experience, but failure. It can be easy, and it can cause us to get stuck in failure over and over and over. And I'll never forget when I was at flight school, and I failed a check ride, and I had been doing so well, never failed anything, and then I failed the first time I did fail an in-flight evaluation. I just beat myself up so bad, and I just was so down on myself, and I left that after that flight evaluation, and I said, I kind of gave up. Failure. Oh, I had one failure, right? Mm-hmm. Out of all successes, I had one failure, and sometimes success can spoil us. Failure can drive us down, but sometimes success can do bad things to us too. Right. That when we finally hit failure, we don't realize it's something to learn from. And I came home that evening after my check ride, after my in-flight evaluation, and my roommate, who was a few months ahead of me in the program, said, "Todd," he goes, so what? You failed one ride. You failed one, we all do. We all have setbacks. Get back up, man. Let's get back up on the horse and let's go forward, right? Failure, setbacks, if we use them right, teach us more than success ever will.
Oh,
right.
100%. Yeah. It's, I forgot the saying. It's either something or you learn. You either succeed or you learn.
Right.
Or is that it?
Yeah. You either succeed or you learn. You're going to go forward or you're going to learn. Failure is you got the terminology slips me too now. But John Maxwell says it's failing forward, right? You fail forward. You don't fail backwards. When you fail forward. Right. And that's what you've got to do. You got to fail. Not fail, F-A-I-L, fail forward, and not grow backwards. So we grow more from failures than anything. So the last few months for you have been up and down, 100%. Right? You've had to face some tough times. Yeah.
Right. And luckily I didn't, use or do anything like that, because that's something I've been able to keep, away from, and I know I will, especially with the situation that happened to me. That's terrifying to even think about going back to anything like that. But I did meet a woman, and that's against the rules here at Next Step. You can't have a girlfriend, so that was a rule I broke. And
you can't have a boyfriend either.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Just kidding. That was a joke.
I wouldn't have either one. Well, okay.
Yeah, that was a joke.
Once I'm at a Next Step, I know I'll be able to have a relationship and things like that. But while I'm here,
we try to keep distractions to a minimum. Yeah,
and what made it worse was when I was confronted about this, then I lied about it. Yeah. And that's, and that's where I need to improve, is just being 100% honest about things when confronted about it, because lying about it doesn't help anybody. Yeah. It doesn't make it any better. If anything, it's going to make it much worse.
That's right, because eventually it's going to come out anyway, right? And then you got to cover the lie and everything else. So.
It's all, yeah. So and it's nice that everything's out in the open now, and I'm not worried about it anymore, because for a little bit there I was worried about it, and everyone was like, "Hey man, you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine, I'm great." But it's like, how great can you be when you're not telling everybody everything?
Right. Yep. Yeah. And if anybody's been around Next Step long enough, we all know that if something is confronted, it's because we already know the answer, right?
100%, yes.
It's not, we're not confronting something going, did this happen? And we don't already know the answer, right? We already know the answer.
I think that's a huge thing. Like a lot of addicts, and myself specifically, I like to be in control, or I did, and I've been really good about giving it all to God. And then just for that little bit of just, I can control the situation. And that's, He's humbling me, and I'm learning, hey, I just got to always give to him. And it's been great. And being with the new guys at the house and being back there right now, because, not going to work right now, but that's okay. It's cool getting to know all the new guys and, encourage them on a daily basis. And to let them know, like, hey, if you mess up, Next Step is going to be there for you and help lift you back up. They're not going to just turn their back on you. That's something that a lot of programs don't have. And certainly, and there are times when we may have to remove somebody, but we certainly, you got to draw the line somewhere.
That's right.
You got to draw the line somewhere, yeah.
So I ask every guy, girl too, every guy, every lady that I have on here, in the last few months, what's your biggest lesson, biggest takeaway? This is a thing that has impacted me the most. This is the biggest thing I've learned. What is that?
I'd say lately is just, in everything, give it to God. And if you're confronted about something, just be honest. No
matter how much it hurts.
No matter how much it hurts, or it might affect what's going on and you don't want it to, you got to let God have it, and you got to be willing to just follow the rules of wherever you're at, whether it's the law and, not being in a program to following the law, or just if you're in a program and there's some rules, even if you don't agree with it, you got to agree with them.
I would say it's the boundaries, right? I hate, we don't like terms like rules and laws, and it's the boundaries that are put in place for our protection, right? And boundaries are, if you go down the highway, there are boundaries, and they're there for your protection, right? Yeah. There's guardrails.
Speed limits.
Right. And they're there for
they're not
your
challenges. It's not like, can you beat this speed?
Yeah, right. It's protection, right? It's protection. Right. It's protect you, it's protect your vehicle, it's protect others. And then when we drive within the boundaries, we can all participate in the interstate. Right. But if somebody violates the boundaries,
Next thing you got
Next thing you know, there's an accident, and then traffic's backed up for an hour, and everybody suffers because somebody decided to violate the boundary.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And that's something I've had to, really learn to do is stay in the boundaries, and I'm still working on it, obviously, but
there's freedom in boundaries.
Right.
There's freedom in boundaries.
I think growing up and my early years of being an adult, which I guess I still am. I'm only 28, so I always push those boundaries in work and all sorts of things. I've always been that guy, and I think that's something that I'm learning now is to just really just color in the lines.
Yeah, stay in the lines. That's right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, EJ, thank you so much, man, and I appreciate you taking the time today. I know you guys are busy, and had a busy morning at Next Up this morning selling peanuts, and so it's Friday, and we sell boiled peanuts on Fridays and Saturdays. So if you ever need some boiled, hot, good boiled peanuts, we're at the intersection of Rocky Creek and Pionono every Friday morning and Saturday morning. We'd love to have you come by some. That supports the ministry. If you want to, if you have more questions about EJ or about boiled peanuts, you can reach us at www.nextstepmen.org. We'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful day.